Chloe, the ice-cold school beauty, stole bread from a supermarket. But I caught her on my phone. The second she saw me, she tried to run. But I grabbed her hand. Miss School Beauty, you're under arrest. Caught scavenging, she trembled in fear. But I had no intention of letting her go. In my last life, I let her leave to spare her the embarrassment. The next day, I learned she died in a car crash. Now that I had a second chance, I'd make sure she survived. And stayed in my senior year. But I didn't know exactly when the crash happened. To finally put my fear to rest, I keep her here overnight if I had to, as long as she made it through today. So this time, I didn't let her leave. I pulled her into an empty corner. With a wicked grin, I played the video. Well, Chloe. You wouldn't want the school seeing this, would you? Her cheeks turned even redder. Her tearful eyes silently begged me. I wasn't falling for it. I held out my hand. Take out whatever you stole. Or do I have to search you myself? Bad luck, Chloe. My dad owns this store. Chloe looked up, tears welling in her eyes. But she said nothing. She took 3 loaves from her backpack. To my surprise, she'd picked the cheapest ones. If you're stealing, why not take something good? At least grab a drumstick or sausage. I dumped everything from her backpack onto the table. Textbooks, summer homework, supplies, and a torn pencil case. And 1 white sanitary pad. Chloe went pale and rushed forward. She clutched the pad in her fist. Then she snatched her backpack back. But the strap snapped. Just those 3 loaves. She gave me a weak glare. Her red eyes made her delicate face even more heartbreaking. I glared back. Now you're giving me attitude? I pretended not to notice the damage. I grabbed the bag and tossed it onto the table. You think I'm that easy to fool? You brought a whole backpack for 3 cheap loaves? I slowly closed in on her. Panicked, she raised her hands defensively. I looked down at her clothes. This looks bulky. Are you hiding something? She quickly covered her chest. No, save it. Take off your jacket. Don't make me do it. Unless you want the whole school hearing about this tomorrow. She instantly panicked. Don't. She raised her hand and slowly lowered the zipper at her neck. Her pale, slender neck appeared, along with her worn t-shirt collar, and half of her delicate collarbone. Her skin was incredibly fair. I never knew clothes could hide so much space. Eyes red with humiliation, Chloe spoke. Seen enough? There's nothing there. I leaned closer for another look. Her body wash mixed with the clean scent of detergent. You're still wearing another layer. She bit her lip. This is my last layer. I can't. I nodded and didn't push any further. But something stood out. If a girl were searched this closely by a guy, her eyes should be cold with disgust. But Chloe only looked embarrassed and upset. That's when I realized Chloe didn't hate me. If I took it a step further, maybe before this, she'd even had a bit of a crush on me. But as far as I remembered, we'd never spoken. We'd never even made eye contact in class. Was I really that clueless as a teenager? Thinking about my younger self gave me a headache. Back then, Madison was all I cared about, and I worshipped the ground she walked on. One mixed signal from her could keep me up all night. Looking back, I was an idiot. I stepped back and looked down. Nothing hidden in your shorts, right? She obediently turned out both pockets. I ignored them and glanced at the wall clock. Only a few minutes had passed. The car probably hadn't even reached the intersection yet. So I kept giving her a hard time. Empty pockets prove nothing. Let me check. I crouched down and reached toward her shorts. Chloe truly panicked, breathing hard. I'd expected that reaction. So I told her to jump twice and see if anything fell out. When she didn't move, I said, either I check or you jump twice. Your choice. Chloe chose to obey. She'd stolen, so she felt she couldn't argue. She raised her arms slightly and gathered herself for one small jump. I was about to pretend to check the floor, but my eyes automatically aimed higher. She was too focused on looking down to notice my gaze. Then she jumped again. I quickly said, okay, that's enough. Keep jumping and you'll make me dizzy. I wasn't lying. I only took 3 loaves. I gave them back. Can I go now? I couldn't think of another reason to keep her. As she reached the door, I called out, wait. She turned, clutching her backpack to her chest. Her beautiful eyes watched me warily. I couldn't help asking, are you really hungry? Chloe lowered her head and said nothing. Without another word, I opened a loaf and offered it to her. Eat before you go. The stockroom fell silent. Chloe kept her head down. She didn't reach for it, just stood there clutching her bag. She looked thin enough for a breeze to knock her over. It's already open. I can't sell it. Take it. I firmly shoved the bread into her hand. A few seconds later, Chloe slowly raised it and took a small bite. Then she ate faster and faster. Suddenly, 2 tears fell like loose pearls and hit the floor. She was crying. From being caught to being searched, she hadn't shed a single tear. But the moment she tasted the bread, she finally broke down. I watched silently, then opened another loaf. I put it in her free hand and checked my pockets. But I had no tissues. Damn. 17-year-old me never carried tissues. A real man should always keep some handy. I didn't know what had happened to Chloe's family. But even if they were poor, this was the 21st century. How could a top student like her be driven to steal bread just to eat? After the second loaf, Chloe eyed the third. Before I could turn around, she grabbed it, opened it, and started eating. As she ate, she opened her backpack and took out paper and a pen. She quickly wrote a few lines. August 30th, 2010. Chloe Bennett owes Ethan Hayes 3 loaves of bread. I took the note and froze. The way she'd written Ethan Hayes matched the handwriting on that old ballot. Exactly. Then it hit me. The person who'd quietly voted for me as class sports rep was Chloe, not Madison. I'd always assumed Madison cast that vote. That only made me pursue her harder. And Madison happily enjoyed all my attention. Since my family owned a supermarket, she often took free water, drinks, and gum, even sanitary pads. I set the IOU on the table. You think writing an IOU makes this whole thing go away? Chloe braced herself for the worst. What do you want? I waved it off. I'm kidding. Come with me. I broke your backpack, so I'll replace it. No, I can sew it myself. I make the call here. Ethan Hayes doesn't owe people. I took Chloe to the backpack section. Her eyes immediately settled on a pink backpack. I put it in her hands. This one's yours. No, mine was already damaged. She stubbornly put it back. If you want today kept quiet, take the bag. Chloe paused, then took it down again. She added another item to the IOU. One backpack. Her expression turned bitter, as if she'd never be able to repay it. Her expression made me smile. Since you're making a list, come with me. At the school supply aisle, something bumped my back. I turned to see Chloe backing away, rubbing her forehead. Watch where you're going. You really like headbutting me. Next time, I'll let you do it all you want. Then I put a pink pencil case in her arms. Chloe saw the price and refused. I don't want it. If you want today's incident, I don't have enough money to repay you. Chloe cut me off. I looked at her with interest. I never said you had to pay. You could repay me another way. Another way? Chloe tilted her head, her thoughts clearly wandering. When she saw me smiling, she quickly looked away. But her bright red ears gave her away. I kept leading Chloe around the store. But at one aisle, she blushed and turned to leave. Stop. Unless you want the school hearing about today. I'm a bad kid, you know. Bad kids will do anything. Only then did Chloe turn back. I don't need pads. Really? By my expert calculation, you had one in your bag and one on you. That leaves you with only 2. Chloe had no comeback. I smiled and tossed her a pack of pads. Chloe hopped slightly and caught it, stunned. After adding it to the IOU, she secretly held the pack to her nose. Her eyes filled with wonder. So these really are scented. She'd only used unscented loose ones before. Then we reached the entrance. Walk carefully and watch for cars. Get home safely and come to school tomorrow. Do that, and today never happened. Got it? Chloe didn't understand why I was saying this. Still, she nodded and handed me the IOU with both hands. Keep this. I'll honor it. I nodded and opened the door for her. But 3 stylish girls were standing outside. Then I remembered. On August 30th, about half an hour after Chloe left, Madison had shown up with her friends. Now everyone involved in that mistaken vote was here. It was time to settle things. I stopped Chloe from leaving. Stay and watch the show. Back then, Madison never confirmed or denied our relationship. She took every gift but always kept me at arm's length. She called the time before graduation my trial period and told me to prove myself. Dad stocked the store, and I delivered everything to Madison. Even my 14-year-old sister thought I was pathetic. Not until sophomore year of college did I learn. Madison had been dating an upperclassman for a year. Crushed, I threw myself into work. By my early 30s, I was worth over $100 million. By then, Madison's ex-husband had left her with a child. Only then did I realize how many stupid things I'd done for her. Now Madison saw me, standing with Chloe, someone I supposedly barely knew. She said sarcastically, "Wow, Ethan, you're talking to Chloe now? So who's prettier, her or me? She's a customer. What are you buying today, Madison?" One girl covered her mouth in surprise. "Madison, his family really owns this place. It's huge." Madison proudly waved a hand. "Yeah. Look around. Take whatever you want. It's on me." The 2 girls looked impressed. They eagerly started shopping. Soon, they piled a mountain of snacks on the counter. As usual, Madison grabbed gum and drinks. "Ethan, get us 2 large bags." "Sure." I started scanning each item. Madison suddenly froze. "What are you doing?" "Scanning the prices. Aren't you buying this stuff?" The 2 girls behind her whispered. "Didn't Madison say it was free?" Madison was embarrassed. "Ethan, why are you being so cheap today? It's just some snacks. They're not expensive." I laughed. "Exactly. They're cheap. You offered to pay. Can't afford it?" Madison was speechless. Chloe blinked, surprised by the scene. Madison suddenly slammed the counter. Ethan, you can't be serious. I'm actually getting mad. There you go, losing it again. While you do, rob me in broad daylight. Madison froze as a thought struck her. Did you see me with Logan at the mall yesterday? Ethan, don't be petty. I just ran into him. Sorry. I slept all day yesterday. I wasn't at the mall. Then what's wrong with you today? Nothing. Paying for what you buy is normal, isn't it? Right, Chloe? Chloe turned away and ignored me. She'd just stolen something, so she felt unqualified to answer. Madison's friends couldn't take it anymore. Let's forget it, Madison. We don't want them that badly. Yeah, it's not worth getting mad over. But Madison wouldn't quit. She played her trump card. Ethan, Logan asked me out yesterday. I smiled. And you neither accepted nor rejected him, right? You said school comes first and you'd talk after graduation. Exposed so bluntly, Madison lost it. Ethan, what's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Are you buying this or not? If not, put it back. The two girls reached for the items, but Madison stopped them. Ethan, this is how you show you like me? This is how you act around me? I could accept Logan's confession tomorrow. I applauded and sang, "Happy new couple to you." Chloe nearly burst out laughing. But when I looked over, she quickly turned away. Panic flashed in her eyes. Madison pulled her friends toward the door. You were definitely at the mall. You'll regret this, Ethan. I suddenly called after them. Stop. Madison thought I'd changed my mind. But the next second, I slammed the counter. Regret, my ass. Put everything back where you found it. Madison stood there, mouth open and hands trembling. Her eyes reddened too. Her two friends had already heard about my bad reputation at school. They quickly put everything back, then rushed to Madison's side. They led her away. I felt much better after that. Chloe came over, hugging her backpack. If that's all, I'm leaving. I said nothing and picked up a hair clip. I gently clipped back a loose strand of her hair. Chloe froze, then finally came to her senses. She quickly took it off. I don't want it. It's a thank you gift. When I ran for sports rep last year. Thanks for voting for me. Chloe's eyes darted away. A few seconds later, she shoved the clip back into my hand. Then she turned and fled. Take it slow. Walk. Run into traffic, and I'll report you tomorrow. Chloe didn't look back, but she obediently slowed down. She went from running to walking. Now I knew, believable or not, the second I threatened to report her shoplifting. It always worked. Heck, next time I could use it to mess with her in more exciting ways. On September 1st, I returned to class and discovered I was second to last. Chloe was last. The top student had somehow scored 0. The reason was simple. She'd missed the finals. Naturally, Chloe became my deskmate. Miss Carter laid down the law. I'm warning you. Don't distract her in class. If I catch you, you'll spend the day standing on the field stage. I shamelessly asked, what counts as bothering her? I poked Chloe's arm. Does this count? That ear turned red, and she scooted away. Miss Carter turned red and swung her pointer at me. I easily dodged it and swaggered into the classroom. Chloe followed with her head down. Under everyone's gaze, her other ear turned red too. At our seats by the back window, Chloe focused on her book. Suddenly, I laid my head sideways on her desk, boldly admiring her gorgeous eyes. Chloe tightened her grip on her pen. Flustered, she lowered her head to avoid my gaze. She stared at her toes, both ears bright red. She started getting anxious. Go back to your seat. The more flustered she got, the happier I was. Then Miss Carter slammed the podium. Only then did I look away from Chloe's face, but my eyes kept shamelessly watching her. A minute later, Chloe couldn't take it anymore. What are you looking at? Nothing. Just wondering why your mouth is so tiny. Chloe pressed her lips tight, trying to hide them. She turned away and I finally looked elsewhere. I pulled a bag of warm meat buns from my backpack and handed it over. Eat these at morning break. I don't want them. Say no again, and I swear. She obediently took the buns. Her beautiful eyes gave me an angry glare. That's better. Just do as you're told. Miss Carter slapped the podium again. English is next. Get your books ready. She cast one last wary look toward our corner. She pointed at me with a fierce, silent warning. Before leaving the room, the English teacher, holding her lesson plans and books, had been waiting outside. Miss Carter smiled and nodded, and she walked in, her long legs in black stockings catching everyone's eye. Our English teacher was Grace Monroe, a recent graduate. She wasn't stunning, but she was pretty. She had a great figure, poise, and a warm personality. She was eager to connect with the class. When the bell rang, I took out my English textbook. I stared at the untouched portrait on the first page and wanted to add dark circles and a little mustache, but I forced my right hand down. No, couldn't. I was studying hard in this life. Damn muscle memory. Chloe glanced at me but said nothing. The boys in class could be pretty dramatic. She often saw me walking along, then suddenly jumping like a maniac, and miming a jump shot. Every time, Chloe would stop and stare in confusion. To keep me from noticing, she'd lower her head and walk past me. That's when she realized I was weird. Whenever I saw a trash can, my hand would twitch. Whether it was a paper ball or an empty bottle, I had to pick it up and shoot a perfect arc toward the trash. If I missed, I'd awkwardly run over and retrieve it, then return to the same spot and shoot again. Once, I missed for an entire break. I nearly lost my mind. From inside the classroom, Chloe turned and stared at the boy hustling in the hallway. She watched, captivated, for the entire break. I was about to talk to Chloe, but Grace asked me to read the first paragraph aloud. I stood and read it naturally. The moment the first word left my mouth, Grace's expression changed. She looked up from her book in surprise. The whole class turned around. Chloe stared at me in shock. Her beautiful eyes fixed on me as she thought, his accent is flawless and British. Grace casually leaned against a nearby desk, one leg slightly bent. Dylan's eyes instantly lit up in the corner. What did you do all summer? Even going abroad wouldn't explain this. I answered seriously, studying hard, of course. I'm going to college. At those words, surprise and delight flashed in Chloe's eyes. Grace looked over. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Ethan, I have high hopes for you. Sit down. That was one hell of a flex. Before my rebirth, I expanded my business overseas and had to speak English every day. I slapped my thigh, but hit Chloe's leg instead. Chloe jerked her leg back and raised her fist. I slapped Chloe's leg instead. Chloe jerked her leg back and raised her fist. She punched my arm, her beautiful eyes blazing. Touch my leg again, and I'm telling Miss Carter. It was an accident. I meant to slap mine. But Chloe's punch didn't hurt. It actually felt kind of nice, so I patted her arm again. I'll coach your spoken English. You tutor me in everything else. Deal? Chloe didn't answer. After a while, she passed me a note agreeing to the deal. At break, I reminded Chloe to eat. Chloe took out the buns and offered them back with both hands. I'm not hungry. I skipped breakfast. I told you. Eat. Don't make me mad. Only then did she open the bag and take small bites. Her eyes lit up when she tasted the meat. Her next bite was much bigger, and she quickly finished one. Worried she might look messy, Chloe looked up at me shyly, her ears red. I watched her with satisfaction. If this wasn't raising a daughter, what was? After her second bun, 2 were still left. I'm full. I'll save the rest for lunch. Just eat. No back talk. Chloe stared at me resentfully. For a moment, she seemed ready to rebel against my tyranny. I leaned close, still glaring at me. Keep it up and I swear. She quickly opened the bag and obediently started on the third bun. But she ate much slower, as if she couldn't bear to finish it. Watching her, I thought, as if she couldn't bear to finish it. Watching her, I thought, I had to be firm with her. That shoplifting secret. I could hold it over her forever. Just then, Madison walked over. Chloe coolly turned away and focused on her bun, though she listened closely. I glanced at Madison. What? Come outside. I need to talk to you. Madison reached the door, then saw I was still seated. Ethan, you're getting way out of line. I grew impatient. What did I do? Say it here. I don't feel like moving. Madison came back. With so many people around, she lowered her voice. That's enough. I only said I'd accept Logan to scare you. It was just a joke. Madison cautiously glanced toward Logan and whispered, I don't like him. So you like me? Madison blushed. I told you. We're too young to date. After graduation, Chloe suddenly warned us the teacher's coming. Madison stomped in frustration and returned to her seat. At noon, Madison asked me to eat with her. I flatly refused, so she left alone. I looked at Chloe. She always went to the cafeteria so late. What did she eat? Or did she skip lunch? She was still studying. I put my head down and waited 5 minutes. Soon, my steady snores echoed through the room. Chloe looked over and saw drool running from my mouth. She quickly pulled out a tissue, folded it, and carefully brought it to the corner of my mouth. She had a secret no one knew. She'd known Ethan since middle school. Her mind held countless memories of him, but she knew he'd forgotten them all. Maybe he'd never cared, but that was okay. She remembered. At that thought, Chloe raised a pale fingertip and gently touched my cheek. When my snoring stopped, she yanked her hand back and sat up straight, her heart racing. When I started snoring again, Chloe finally relaxed. After sitting quietly, she rose and left with her backpack. This was her usual lunch hour. At the cafeteria, everyone had already eaten, leaving it empty. The cleaners had started working as Chloe quietly approached the counter. Martha sighed when she saw her. You again, sweetheart? How many times have I told you? Come earlier. By now all the food is gone. There's only gravy left. Chloe gave a shy smile. It's okay. Plain rice is fine. She's first in the grade, you know. She's late because she's studying. Donna recognized Chloe and chimed in. Martha brightened and stared at Chloe admiringly. Look at you. Pretty as an angel and so smart. If my son were half as good as you, here have extra rice. And some meat gravy. Just 50 cents for the rice. If my son were half as good as you, here have extra rice. And some meat gravy. Just 50 cents for the rice. After paying, Chloe saw only $5.20 left on her meal card. Even 50 cents a meal was a luxury for her. But she'd tried studying on an empty stomach. It didn't work. Chloe carried her rice to a corner table. She ate slowly, not wasting a single grain. Meanwhile, I jolted awake and found Chloe gone. The clock showed I'd slept for half an hour. There was no way the cafeteria had food left now. At the cafeteria, I asked Martha, was there a pretty girl here just before me? For lunch? Yeah. That girl always studies late. By the time she comes, plain rice is all that's left. Once I had my rice, I sat down. It looked like Chloe ate only rice for lunch. Of course, studying was just a cover. It was the excuse she gave herself. For only eating whatever rice was left. Kids our age had pride. Chloe was no different. I understood that. What I didn't understand was where she went after lunch. In first period that afternoon, Ms. Carter and Logan came in together. Fall sports day was coming up on September 20th. So they asked what we wanted for our class uniforms. To their surprise, every boy shouted in unison, "Prep school uniforms." The girls fell silent, their cheeks turning pink. Only a few, including Madison, looked excited. Girls our age rarely wore short skirts, at home or at school. Everyone was pretty conservative. I looked beside me and found Chloe calmly reading her textbook. I looked away without a word, watching Ms. Carter and the restless class. Of course, I wanted to see Chloe in a cute prep school uniform. I wanted her to enjoy being young like every other girl, especially with looks like hers. I'd never even seen her with her long hair down. God had given her beauty, but denied her the chance to show it. I could pay for her and I'd gladly do it. I had enough to buy her dozens. All my gift money was still sitting in the bank. But I also knew that to help a poor girl with a lot of pride, giving her cash or clothes was the worst approach. Ms. Carter agreed on the prep school uniforms. Everyone had 1 week to give Logan $50 and their size. At the price, Chloe looked up in surprise. Then she quietly lowered her head and returned to her book. In PE that afternoon, I turned to Chloe. So it's settled. You're tutoring me at my house Saturday. Chloe instantly tensed up. I'll tutor you, but I never agreed to go to your house. Then I'll give you some quiet options. You choose. 1. My bedroom. 2. The market stock room. 3. A private karaoke room. 4. A hotel room with a king bed. Seeing my wicked grin, she finally understood. I was forcing her to pick my bedroom. Chloe blushed. Your house is fine, but someone else has to be home. They will. They will. Chloe said nothing. After packing up, she hugged her pink backpack and gave me a doubtful little nod. It was adorable. I grinned. Felt like I'd successfully lured her in. Hey, I wasn't luring her. I saved her life. Her life belonged to me now. I treated her like my own daughter. Everyone else had already left. So Chloe and I hurried downstairs to line up. I waited so we could walk side by side, but Chloe deliberately lagged behind with her backpack. She seemed to be keeping her distance. I ignored it, slung my blue backpack over one shoulder, and put my hands in my pockets. As I headed down to the field, at 6 feet tall, I sauntered along. Only then did Chloe speed up. From behind, the boy and girl looked striking with matching blue and pink backpacks. But only the more sensitive girl seemed to notice. After warm-up laps, all of homeroom 28 lined up. We faced Marcus Reed, our tall, lean, tan PE teacher. Rumor had it he could do 21 arm pull-ups. He was an absolute beast. And Grace Monroe's dream guy. Starting next class, anyone signed up for sports day will train for their event. Today's class is free time. Homeroom 28 erupted in cheers and scattered in every direction. But for some, the words free time were a nightmare. They could only wander the field or sit on the steps. Chloe was one of them, but she didn't mind. While I followed some guys to the basketball court, Chloe headed to the steps where we left our bags. She took great care of that backpack. She even placed her Literature 3 textbook under it. To keep the bottom clean, Chloe sat down on the steps and carefully placed the bag in her lap. Then she raised her literature book. But once she opened it, her eyes, which should have been on the page, drifted to the basketball court. She always did this. Every free period, the time she meant to spend studying, was wasted watching the court. Just then, I drove past a defender in my uniform, leaving Logan stumbling side to side. I took 3 steps and threw down a dunk. The rim rattled. I landed smoothly and rolled my neck. Chloe's eyes widened. At the edge of the court, Madison and her two friends stared in shock. Logan's center-parted hair drooped like a wet mop. He blurted out, "Ethan, you can freaking dunk?" In high school, a guy who could dunk was the one true god of the court. I was surprised too. Ever since my rebirth yesterday, I'd gotten much stronger, and my vertical had improved. Was this a bonus from being reborn? Why not boost my IQ? What good was a little extra strength? Would it get me into college? "Ethan, that was so cool," Madison said, blushing. I gave her a brief glance, then looked away. Toward the distant steps, our eyes suddenly met. Chloe immediately turned away. She hugged her book to her chest and moved her lips, pretending to recite it, but one ear had turned red. She really did sit there every single time. As far as I remembered, during every free period, Chloe sat in that same spot with a textbook. "Your old man looks this good playing, yet my own daughter won't come watch?" I looked away, and found Madison and her friends still gazing at me dreamily. "Ethan, that dunk was seriously amazing," Madison said again. Her tone made it sound like praise from her was incredibly rare. I just said, "Oh," and ignored her. Hearing Madison praise me, Logan glared at me, clearly unhappy. He tossed his parted hair. "No one beats me at basketball. Ethan, let's go one-on-one." Before I could answer, someone said, "Logan, you're just letting him show off. The real way to crush him is to act like his dunk never happened." I flipped him off. "Damn, that's cold." Logan took the ball first. I glanced behind him, went pale and tossed him the ball. Logan caught it and eagerly drove for a layup. I didn't stop him. I sprinted toward the steps. A crowd had gathered there. I pushed through and found Chloe sitting on the ground, clutching her right ankle in pain. Marcus hung his whistle around his neck. What happened? A girl nearby hesitated. "Just now, I think I saw a girl push Chloe from behind. Then she fell down the steps." "What did she look like? Which class?" "Couldn't tell. She ran off." "What the hell? She'd better hope I don't catch her." I cursed loudly. Then I hurried over and crouched beside Chloe. "Help me out. I'm taking her to the nurse." The girl I'd fought so hard to save was still being hurt by some reckless idiot. Several girls quickly helped Chloe up. Balancing on one foot, she stared at my broad back and hesitated. When she didn't move, I looked back impatiently. "What are you waiting for? Get on." Chloe bit her lip and opened her arms. She gently leaned onto my back. My angry expression instantly softened. Seeing me frozen there, Marcus frowned. "What's wrong? If you can't carry her, I will." At that, Chloe wrapped both arms around my neck. Both ears were bright red, and she looked deeply embarrassed. I quickly answered with innocent eyes. No, my leg fell asleep. It's fine now." I stood and supported Chloe's legs. I carried her over to the steps and leaned down so she could grab her backpack. Then I moved over so she could grab mine too. "Just hang my bag around my neck. It's heavy. It'll hurt your neck." Chloe's voice sounded right beside my ear. Seeing her hold a bag in each hand, I worried her arms would get tired. So I hurried to the nurse's office. What I couldn't see was the smile, warming her face like spring sunshine. "Did you see who pushed you?" "No." "Do you suspect anyone?" "No." "You're afraid I'll teach them a lesson, aren't you?" At the nurse's office, I carried Chloe around, but couldn't find the nurse. "Where is everyone?" I made another round and still found no one. So I set Chloe on an exam bed covered in disposable paper. She sat on the edge, her toes barely touching the floor. "Forget it. I'll do it myself." I pulled up a stool and sat across from Chloe. She suddenly pressed her knees together and asked warily, "What are you doing?" "Checking if it's a sprain, dislocation, or fracture." Both her ears turned red, but she asked coolly, "You know how?" "Of course. Back home, I used to set bones for the village sows." "Sows? Why would?" Then she realized what I meant. Embarrassed and angry, she punched my shoulder. I laughed and grabbed Chloe's right foot. I slipped off her shoe, revealing a clean white sock. Chloe bit her lip shyly, keeping her legs tightly together. But what I did next nearly made her kick me to death. "It's been all day. Why don't your feet smell? What's wrong with you?" Even someone as quiet and reserved as Chloe couldn't help cursing me out. I pouted and grabbed her right foot again. When she struggled, I sharply slapped her calf. "Hold still." Chloe complied in humiliation, glaring at me. I removed her sock, revealing her smooth, porcelain pale skin and her tiny, pink-tinged heel. Then I gently squeezed her slightly swollen ankle. Chloe let out a muffled groan. "Does it hurt?" She nodded shyly. "Then I'll be gentle." I cupped her slender ankle with both hands and slowly rotated it, feeling the bones. A moment later, I relaxed. "It's just a mild sprain. Some medicated oil will do." I stood and found half a bottle of medicated oil in a drawer. Then I sat back down. I stood and found half a bottle of medicated oil in a drawer. Then I sat back down. I placed Chloe's right foot on my knee and prepared to apply it. But she pulled her foot back. I'll do it myself. How dare you? I barked at her, and Chloe's right leg froze. I took her foot back and scolded her. It's medical. Why are you embarrassed? But seconds later, Chloe asked coolly, if you're treating my ankle, why remove my whole sock? Did I? What's in your right hand? I looked down. My right hand held her white sock, while my left held her small, pale foot in midair. Before I could get more than a few looks, Chloe yanked her foot back in embarrassment. She angrily snatched back her sock and shot me a disgusted glare, like I was some creepy foot fetishist. She turned away, applied the oil, then put on her sock and shoe. She put on her backpack and left the nurse's office. I chased after her. Wait, let me explain. Sometimes my hands don't listen to me. Chloe ignored me and kept walking. School was over, but Chloe said she was going back to study. I let her head toward the classroom building, while I went to get my bike. When I reached the school gate with my bike, I couldn't stop thinking about Chloe's sprained ankle. I didn't know where she lived or how far it was. Was she really going to limp all the way home? I sighed and reluctantly headed back. I take her home today. When I reached the window of senior homeroom 28, I sighed and reluctantly headed back. I take her home today. When I reached the window of senior homeroom 28, I slowed down and stopped. In the empty classroom, Chloe wasn't studying. She was limping across the podium with an eraser, standing on tiptoe to clean the board. Third period that afternoon had been history. The history teacher was nearly 6'3", and loved writing high on the board. So Chloe was struggling. She stretched the eraser high with her right hand. Her sleeve slipped down, revealing her slender, pale forearm. But she still couldn't reach the wild scrawl at the top. My eyes shifted to the duty roster. It read, chalkboard and podium, Ethan Hayes. Chloe lowered her arm in defeat. She simply couldn't reach. She paused, took a breath, and jumped on one foot. She stretched her arm toward the very top. Just as the eraser was about to reach it, a large hand entered Chloe's view, took the eraser from her. Chloe turned and her heel came down. Her injured ankle gave out and she tipped sideways. I quickly grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Our eyes met, but Chloe backed away like she'd been caught doing something wrong. She asked nervously, "Didn't you go home?" I stared at her without answering. I tossed the eraser in my hand a few times, then raised it. Yep, I reached the top easily. Without answering, I tossed the eraser in my hand, then raised it. Yep, I reached the top easily. After cleaning the board, I tossed the eraser onto the podium. No wonder I never cleaned the board. Yet the teachers never came after me the next day. Tell me, have you always been doing my duty? No. Her eyes darted around guiltily. She gave me one quick glance. If that's all, I'm going back to studying. She turned to leave, but I quickly grabbed her arm. No more studying today. Your ankles hurt. I'll take you home. You don't have to. Chloe immediately refused. I frowned. Where do you live? Is it far? Not far. I gave her a doubtful look. Maybe Chloe just didn't want anyone visiting her home. She had a lot of pride. So I didn't force her. I just said shamelessly, "Fine, but you can only study until 6:30. The second it hits 6:30, you go home. I'll stay here and watch you." Chloe turned and bit her lip, staring at me resentfully. "Then I won't study. I'll go home now." I smiled and nodded. Now that's more like it. Once she packed her bag, I headed for the door, but heard movement at the podium. I looked back. Chloe was carefully wiping the chalk dust off the podium. She claimed she wasn't covering my duty, yet she'd done the whole job. Only after cleaning it did she walk over with her backpack. Head lowered, she awkwardly hurried past me. I chuckled and followed. The phrase "icy, stubborn softy" suddenly had a face. I walked my bike with Chloe to the school gate. We were about to part ways. I patted the back seat. "Let me take you home. It's no trouble." Chloe gripped her sleeve and looked conflicted. "No thanks. If my dad saw a strange boy near me, what would he do?" Chloe lowered her head and whispered, "He'd chase him with a stick." "Your dad's that intense?" Embarrassment flashed across Chloe's face. She gripped her sleeve, nodded, and walked the other way. "Hey, where are your manners? No goodbye?" A rare smile appeared on Chloe's cool face. She softly said, "Bye." I stood there with a warm, fatherly smile. Her steps were unsteady, but she looked fine. Reassured, I got on my bike and headed home. Hearing me leave, Chloe turned around. She stood there watching me right away. Only after I vanished into the crowd did she turn back. Facing the orange sunset, she tucked her hair behind her ear. Her delicate face glowed gold in the sunset, wearing a faint smile. The blue and pink backpacks slowly separated outside Ridgeway High. Across the street, vendors called out about wraps and fried rice cakes. Their voices drifted through the air. as if singing of a perfectly peaceful life. I'm going to study hard and turn my life around. I'm getting into an Ivy League school. I, Ethan Hayes, will be Fairview's top scorer. Back home, I stood in the living room with one foot on a stool, pointing at the ceiling as I faced Dad and Mom, shouting my grand declaration. Mom clapped adorably, but Frank scoffed from the table. He spat a sunflower seed shell onto the floor. I suddenly thought Dad looked a little like Will Ferrell when he was younger, especially when he mocked me just now. Frank looked at Natalie and said mockingly, "See, kids at the bottom always dream the biggest. Guess my dream of crushing Bill Gates and becoming the world's richest man isn't far off either." Natalie smacked Frank's shoulder. "Who talks about his own son like that? Try encouraging him." Frank scoffed again and casually cracked another seed. "Sorry, but I was second to last on last semester's finals." I moved up. The seeds fell from Frank's hand as he stared at me in shock. "Seriously, son?" His reaction made sense because I've been dead last for 2 straight years. Of course, someone missed the exam, so I moved up. Frank's smile froze. He tossed his seeds onto the plate. Listening to this kid just cost me several seconds of my life. Back in my day, I could score 37 out of 100. You barely get 20 out of 150. Each generation gets worse. I fell silent. I may have found why I was so bad at school. Frank waved me off. "Forget it. I'm wasting my breath. I'm heading to the market." Natalie looked confused. "Isn't Carol there?" Her grandson was born, so she quit. "We're short-staffed now." That gave me an idea, and I quickly spoke up. "Dad, I know someone who can replace Carol." "Who?" "My classmate." "A student?" "Hell no." I quickly grabbed the old man and pleaded, "She can work after school. Just pay her less." Frank thought it over. "That's true. If it hurts her grades, that's one less rival on the college entrance exam." His logic was bizarre, but I forced a smile and gave him a thumbs up. "You really see the big picture, Dad." Frank raised his head proudly. "Of course." Natalie shook her head. These two were hopeless. Frank patted my shoulder. "All right, bring her in for an interview tomorrow." After Dad left, I looked around the living room. "Where's Lily?" Natalie glanced at her daughter's door. "Your dad and I just gave her a lecture." "Why?" Natalie lowered her voice. "Your sister's gotten too close to a mentally disabled man. Outside Eastbrook Middle School. Teacher told us. Your dad and I are worried she'll get hurt." Just then, Lily's door flew open. The little girl popped out and yelled, "Mr. Overalls isn't a bad person." She stood there in cute pink bear pajamas, pouting angrily before slamming the door shut. After Mom explained, I finally understood. Outside Lily's school, Eastbrook Middle, a childlike middle-aged man was always wandering around. The students called him an idiot. But when Lily called him Mr. Overalls, the memory suddenly came back. I'd gone to Eastbrook too. That man had already been hanging around the gate. When I was a student there, he was simple-minded but handsome. He dressed neatly and loved wearing blue overalls. It made him oddly charming. But back then, the other kids loved bullying him. They'd throw rocks, smack his back, then run off laughing, or surround him and chant insults. Mr. Overalls never knew what to do. I'd step in and yell at them. But one girl at school hated it even more. Once she grabbed a broom and charged at the bullies, chasing them off. She looked so cool that day, like a superhero defending world peace. I never knew her name. I only remembered she was thin, with long, messy hair covering her face. Maybe because she always looked after Mr. Overalls. He always smiled at her like she was his own daughter. He'd even dance around with joy. Staring at Lily's door, I fell silent. A girl had fiercely protected Mr. Overalls back in middle school. By now, she should be in high school like me. So Mr. Overalls had lost his protector. Lily had taken her place and carried on her sense of justice. At that thought, I turned to Mom. "Mom, I think you should hear the full story." Before deciding whether to punish Lily, Natalie froze as I headed to Lily's room. The 14-year-old's room was ultra-girly. A pink bed, pink furniture, and pink stuffed animals. Walking in felt like stepping into a pink ocean. Clearly, she was their real kid and they found me in a dumpster. Come to think of it, Chloe seemed to love pink too. "What do you want?" Lily sat on the bed, hugging a teddy bear and pouting. She looked deeply annoyed. I leaned against the door and smiled. "Let me tell you a secret. I was friends with Mr. Overalls in middle school too." "Really? He's sweet and harmless. He'd never hurt anyone. A lot of kids bullied him, so I protected him a few times." Lily gave me a surprised look. Her brother had been labeled a bad kid since middle school, yet apparently he had a kind side. She nodded. "Exactly. He's really nice. At lunch today I saw a really pretty girl sitting across the street and kindly feeding him rice. I didn't think much of it and warned Lily, I'm all for you protecting him. But if anything gets out of hand, call me. I'll come right away. Got it? Lily smiled, nodded, and swung her pale bare feet. For once, her brother didn't seem so annoying. I left Lily's room and returned to mine. I pulled a dusty box from under my bed. It held all my textbooks from my first 2 years of high school. Good thing I hadn't sold them for scrap. The old me would have done it. I cleaned the books and stacked them on my desk. I was starting almost from zero on the first 2 years' material, because I'd never paid attention in class. I vaguely remembered what my teachers always said: this kid is actually smart. He just doesn't apply himself. This time I was going all in. I'd find out whether they really meant it when they called me smart. But studying sure made me sleepy. Half an hour later, Lily, wearing shorts that showed her pale legs, opened her brother's door with a plate of fruit. Her sweet voice instantly became a terrified scream. I sat at my desk with a textbook open. A rope hung from the ceiling, wrapped around my neck. I gagged and rolled my eyes, while groaning like I was fighting fate itself. The old tie your hair to the rafters trick. Ridgeway High was considered one of Fairview's second-tier elite high schools. The best was Fairview Academy. Its hands-off approach produced a stunning 90% top college acceptance rate. Ridgeway, meanwhile, had extremely strict rules and a tightly controlled system with a rate around 50%. The next morning, I rode my bike to school. I usually arrived after morning study ended, but it was only 7. I muttered while walking my bike, sporting 2 dark circles and a red rope mark around my neck. Then I saw a teacher stop Madison. No uniform, and your skirt is that short? What homeroom are you in? Madison lowered her head guiltily. She wore a white t-shirt and blue pleated skirt, her bare legs drawing plenty of attention. I ignored her and walked my bike through the gate. Madison suddenly looked up and saw me. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Did hell freeze over? Ethan's here this early? The bell rang for first period biology. Ryan dropped his handsome face onto the desk and started snoring. I quietly stuffed the buns I'd bought into Chloe's desk. No arguing. Eat them after class. Chloe stared at my neck, wanting to say something. Don't worry. I studied too late last night. I tied my neck up to stay awake. Chloe gave me an incredulous look. Don't worry. I gave her a small smile, closed my eyes and laid my head down. Class was useless without the basics. It might as well have been another language. I could rest and review yesterday's material in my head. Chloe touched the warm buns and pressed her lips together. While I slept, she secretly put 2 in her lunch container. I noticed but didn't expose her. About 10 minutes later, I raised my head. As if she'd rehearsed it countless times, Chloe quickly turned and solemnly confessed. I just ate 2 buns. So you ate them. Why report it to me? Chloe lowered her head awkwardly, then quickly turned back, both ears bright red. She was clearly terrible at lying. For the first time, I realized someone could look adorable while lying. Then the biology teacher spoke. A normal resting heart rate is 60 to 90 beats per minute. Do you know how lie detectors work? Pulse rate is one of the signs they measure. Now pair up with your desk mate and check each other's pulse. A pulse lie detector. Bored, I turned to Chloe, but she nervously hid both hands behind her back and watched me warily. What are you doing? I'll test yours. Chloe had rarely been so proactive. Whatever. I rolled up my sleeve and put my arm on the desk. Chloe placed her pale fingertips on my wrist. Just then, a girl in the back exclaimed, "Teacher, Ryan's pulse says he's pregnant." The whole class looked over. It was Ryan's desk mate, Zoe. As I recalled, she was a superfan obsessed with Bruno Mars. Her fingers were resting on Ryan's wrist. He was fast asleep and drooling, completely unaware he was now pregnant. Dylan couldn't resist stirring the pot. Whose baby is it? Yours, Princess Zoe? Zoe frowned. Screw off. The biology teacher's mouth twitched. Stop fooling around. You're testing for lies, not pregnancy. The whole class groaned. The biology teacher smiled. Pregnancy tests? The whole class groaned. The biology teacher smiled. Hurry and ask your desk mate a question. See if their pulse speeds up when they answer. I shrugged. Ask away. Do you like vegetables? They're okay. Dummy, ask something juicy. Isn't there anything about me you want to know? Ask me anything. Of course there was. But Chloe didn't dare. She gently shook her head. I flipped my hand and pinned Chloe's soft hand beneath mine. Then I boldly pushed up her sleeve, revealing her slender, pale wrist. Just as my fingers neared the visible vein, Chloe nervously pulled her hand away. I stared at her. Are you nervous about hiding those buns? Or something else? Why can't I check your pulse? Because I said no. Then I'll listen to your heartbeat. I slowly leaned my ear toward her chest. She nervously backed away, until her back hit the wall. She had nowhere left to go. I grinned and shamelessly leaned closer. But I knew the limit and didn't actually touch her. Here comes my question. She stayed silent. I grinned wickedly. Do you have a secret crush? Both Chloe's ears instantly turned red. Her eyes widened, and she awkwardly looked away. She quickly answered, "That's stupid. Of course not." I chuckled and listened carefully, then frowned. Maybe the class was too loud or I was too far away. I couldn't hear her heartbeat. The biology teacher clapped. "All right, did it work?" I sat up helplessly. No, no. The biology teacher clapped. "All right, did it work?" I sat up helplessly. No. Judging by Chloe's embarrassment, she probably did have one. Then again, that question alone could embarrass any teenager. Morning classes ended, and lunch arrived. Madison sashayed toward the back in her pleated miniskirt. "Ethan, you'll eat with me today, right?" "No, I'm studying. For real this time." I opened an old textbook on my desk. Madison stomped her foot. "Who are you kidding? With your grades, what's the point? You're just trying to spite me." Chloe gave Madison an icy look, then lowered her head and kept studying. I slapped the desk and pointed at the door. "Take the hint and leave. Don't make me throw you out." Madison nearly cried, and her friend quickly pulled her away. Once everyone left, only Chloe and I remained. Chloe looked over and saw I was truly studying, using different colored pens to mark up my scribbled textbook. She couldn't help smiling, but then I looked over. She quickly turned back and awkwardly flipped a page. Time passed until Chloe's usual late lunch hour. She stood and I got up with a stretch. What a productive session. Bet the cafeteria's out of food. Chloe ignored me and quietly left with her backpack. I casually followed her to the cafeteria counter. I stared at Martha in disbelief. She charged Chloe 50 cents for plain rice, but charged me $2. I stared at Martha in disbelief. She charged Chloe 50 cents for plain rice, but charged me $2. I licked my lips, furious. "Ma'am." Martha gave me a cold look. "What?" "Nothing. You look lovely today." I walked over to Chloe's table and sat across from her. She glanced up, then resumed eating in small bites. From my backpack, I took out snacks from the market. I knew studying late meant no food, so I brought snacks. I opened a drumstick, an egg, and some cured sausage and put them on my tray. But just as I was about to eat, I stopped. Why don't I have an appetite today? Maybe I've eaten these snacks too often." I took her tray and replaced it with my tray full of food. "Forget it. Let's switch meals today." Chloe looked up in shock, and I quickly pointed at her. She stared at me, not daring to say a word. I started eating as she silently watched me eat from her side of the tray. Her long lashes fluttered. Delicious. Why does your rice taste better than mine?" I said blissfully. I looked unbearably smug, but Chloe didn't want to hit me at all. She quietly picked up her fork and whispered, "Thank you." I pretended not to hear. Before long, I'd finished every grain of her rice. "By the way, our market needs a night cashier. This is your official notice. You're hired." Chloe looked up in shock again. I pointed at her firmly. "You'll make half the standard rate. Say one word of complaint or refusal, and you know what happens." Chloe quietly watched me, then sat up straight. She nodded like an employee before her boss. "No complaints. I'll take it." "Good." Chloe happily lowered her head and kept eating. She ate one egg and half the rice. Then she placed her lunch container on her lap and poured in the remaining rice, drumstick, egg, and sausage. I stared. "What are you doing?" "Taking it to my dad." "To your dad?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Wait, you're leaving campus now to bring him this?" Chloe nodded. Seeing that I disapproved, she set her fork aside and quietly stopped packing the food. She sat there stiffly, looking awkward, as if waiting for me to take it back or give another order. She knew I'd meant the food for her, not her father. I'd already had a problem with Chloe's father. What kind of father drives his daughter to steal bread and makes her bring him food from school? A nameless rage flared inside me. If not for Chloe's pride, I'd have gone to her house and confronted her father. A daughter that beautiful and smart. If she were mine, I'd spoil her rotten. I took a deep breath, frustrated. Then I slammed the table. Damn it! Both trays jumped and so did Chloe. She looked up at me timidly. 2 tears suddenly spilled out. She whispered, "I'm sorry." Chloe quickly wiped her tears with her sleeve. Then she took the food back out of her container and pushed the tray toward me. I stared at her. "What are you doing now?" Chloe kept her head down. "I'm full. Thank you for the food. I really appreciate it." To show she wasn't being spiteful, Chloe looked up and forced a smile sadder than tears. She nearly drove me crazy. I pushed the tray back. "Wait, I never said you couldn't take it to your dad. Just eat the drumstick. Give him the rest." "I'm stuffed. I really can't." I nearly had to revive myself. I was furious. My brain wasn't getting enough blood. Forget it. Couldn't win. She was a devoted daughter. That was a good thing. Her father was the problem. I calmed myself down. Fine. Give it to him. Go ahead and pack it. Chloe looked up to check my expression. I forced my mouth into a friendly smile, to show I didn't mind. Only then did she put the food back in her container. She bagged it, put it in her backpack, then rose and bowed. Thank you. Don't call me a good guy. Don't call me a good guy. I chanted inwardly with a blank face. Chloe didn't. Watching her leave the cafeteria, I sighed deeply. After leaving Ridgeway High, Chloe turned left and quickened her pace. She hadn't lied to me yesterday. Chloe turned left and quickened her pace. She hadn't lied to me yesterday. She lived close by, near Eastbrook Middle School. But Chloe didn't go home. She headed to the gates of Eastbrook Middle. She'd gone there too. Across the street, Chloe spotted a middle-aged man in blue overalls, sitting by the landscaping across from the school. He sat perfectly straight, like an attentive child, staring at the gate, afraid he'd miss someone coming out. A smile appeared on Chloe's usually cool face. She hurried over with her backpack. While he wasn't looking, she crept closer, like the mischievous little girl she'd once been. Step by step, she quietly approached him. Then she quickly tapped his shoulder. The man spun around. His handsome face looked around. Seeing no one, he turned back. Then a sweet, smiling face bloomed before him like a flower. Dad, Chloe said with a smile. Chloe. The man looked at his daughter and happily called her name. But then, like a child who'd done something wrong, he quickly stood up. Head down, he kept apologizing. Sorry. I missed Chloe getting out. I missed Chloe getting out. He muttered in a childlike voice. Like a 5-year-old, he nervously twisted his fingers. He looked deeply upset. Chloe helped him sit and comforted him. Chloe ran too fast. That's why Daddy didn't see her. Chloe helped him sit and comforted him. Chloe ran too fast. That's why Daddy didn't see her. Chloe runs fast. Very fast. Daddy can't catch her. The handsome man repeated her words like a child learning to talk. Chloe gazed at him tenderly. Then she took out the food container and clean utensils. Time to eat. Time to eat. The man braced his hands on the step and swung his legs like a child. Chloe first took out a tissue and her water bottle. She poured water onto the tissue and wiped the dirt from his face, gently scolding him. How did your face get dirty again? Sorry? Chloe. The man sounded hurt. It's okay. Chloe isn't mad. She opened the container, wrapped the drumstick's bone in a tissue, and offered it to him. Drumstick. Drumstick. He cried excitedly but didn't take it. He looked anxiously at Chloe and urged her. Chloe, eat. Hurry. The bad people are coming. I already ate. I had to. Dad, hurry and eat. The bad people are coming. Chloe played along. Then she held a bite of rice to his mouth. He opened wide and gobbled it down. Then he took a big bite of the drumstick and savored it. His legs swung excitedly. Is it good? Good. Good. Did Chloe eat? He'd already forgotten. Chloe patiently repeated herself, her voice sweet as a lullaby. I did. I had to. The drumstick was delicious. Just then, at the gates of Eastbrook Middle, a short-haired girl skipped out holding a freshly bought pineapple bun. She was about to cross when she saw the pretty girl again, feeding Mr. Overalls. Lily watched for a moment and smiled. Then she skipped back into school with her bun. Fine. That girl had beaten her to feeding Mr. Overalls again. After one, Chloe returned to class with her backpack. She found me already studying at my desk. For once, she smiled and greeted me first. Good afternoon. I whipped around and stared like I'd seen a ghost. Chloe grew uncomfortable under my stare. What? Did the sun rise in the west? The icy girl with no manners actually greeted me first. Embarrassed, Chloe silently put down her bag and took out her book. I casually asked, So, did your dad enjoy it? Chloe answered happily, He did. I looked at the faint smile on her lips. So that's why you're so happy? Chloe stared blankly, then nodded. I scoffed, at a loss for words. But how could I fault her for being a good daughter? I reminded her, Come to the market with me after evening study. My dad's waiting to interview you. Chloe turned to me in shock. I raised an eyebrow. Relax. My dad may be a few screws loose, but he's easygoing. He won't give you a hard time. Only then did Chloe relax. It was her first interview, and she had no idea what to expect. Why would you say that about your dad? Chloe asked softly. What? That he's missing a screw? I gave her a strange look. I'll say it about him and your dad. Your dad's missing 10 screws. The moment I said it, a small but powerful fist slammed into my chest. Unlike her earlier harmless punches, this one really hurt. I looked at Chloe in surprise. She glared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Tears gathered at the corners. But she soon looked away, conflicted. She knew I didn't understand. I'm sorry. Chloe apologized, and an awkward silence followed. I rubbed my chest and took a deep breath. Okay. I'm sorry too. I know you love him. I shouldn't have said that. Chloe turned away, hiding her falling tears. Her nose stung, and hurt overwhelmed her. As if my words had opened the floodgates. Years of pain poured out at once. The shadows of her past had suffocated her. But Chloe never gave up. She believed she was strong. Yet, when the boy beside her offered comfort, she realized she'd only been pretending. In that instant, her brave facade collapsed. Hidden behind her hair, her tears poured out. I couldn't help saying, I really don't know your family's situation. If there's a special reason your dad. Chloe immediately cut me off. My dad is perfectly normal. Okay. I nodded. Perfectly normal. Okay. I nodded and wisely shut up. She clearly didn't want to discuss it. But if Chloe defended her father this fiercely, maybe he wasn't a jerk. Maybe there was another reason. Chloe stayed quiet through all 4 afternoon classes. I wanted to talk to her, but her cold expression stopped me. But during evening study, something happened that shocked the whole school. The teacher supervising homeroom 28 tonight was Grace Monroe. Dylan wasn't doing his homework. He wore a wicked grin as he admired Grace. Then everything suddenly went dark. The entire classroom plunged into darkness. The students gasped and looked outside. The whole campus was pitch black. Tyler, ever the hype man, immediately roared, "Holy crap, the whole school's out." Homeroom 28 erupted into chaos. Every class clown came alive. Grace was young and couldn't control the situation. She could only keep pounding the podium. "Quiet. Everyone, sit down." Then someone shrieked, "Ah, who touched my leg? Pervert. Stop it." Grace's face darkened. The voice belonged to a boy. He was clearly stirring trouble. She gave up and sat down. There was no controlling this chaos. The boys and girls cheered, each with secret hopes, wishing for a romantic moment of their own. Like someone suddenly taking their hand. Something romantic happening to them. Like someone suddenly taking their hand. Or kissing their cheek. In a teen romance, the heroine would always fear the dark, letting the hero rush in and protect her. Sure enough, a thud came from the back corner. I dropped to my knees. I never expected this damn fear of the dark trait to be mine. Did I get the heroine's script by mistake? When I was 6, I went outside in the dark to use the bathroom, and fell into a pitch-black dry well. I spent the entire night trapped inside. My screw-loose dad thought his son was sleeping soundly. He slept peacefully beside his wife. So all these years, I'd always slept with the lights on. Now, kneeling there, my chest tightened and panic set in. It felt like tentacles were reaching from all sides. Then a heavenly voice called beside me, "Ethan." The icy girl who'd ignored me all afternoon was now calling my name anxiously. A campus-wide blackout during evening study? This was epic. Even years or decades later, whatever happened in that darkness would leave a lasting mark on everyone's teenage memories. In the hall, Victor's flashlight swept everywhere. His angry shouts kept ringing out. "What are you doing? Who's hiding there? Get back to class. Don't run. What are you two doing in that corner? What homeroom are you in?" Grace heard the yelling outside and sighed. She gave up at the podium, but suddenly, her body went rigid. She sighed and gave up at the podium, but suddenly her body went rigid. A shadow seemed to dart past, and someone touched her calf. Grace immediately jumped up and scurried toward the office. Her heels clacked rapidly. She was done. Someone else could handle this mess. Half kneeling, I slowly raised a hand. I could barely breathe. A powerful stench of feet filled the air. A powerful stench of feet filled the air. The Biohazard brothers had probably taken off their shoes. Darkness, pressure, panic, and stench. Every nightmare hit me at once. My fear of the dark was a condition. I still couldn't escape in my 30s. "Ethan." Chloe called anxiously beside me. My mind cleared for a moment. A familiar fragrance drifted beside me. In the darkness, I could barely make out Chloe crouching at my side. "Are you afraid of the dark?" she asked quickly. I never expected her to seem so experienced and diagnose me instantly. Before I could react, Chloe helped me up. Once I was up, a warm, soft hand slipped into my palm. Then she expertly clasped my hand. "Come with me." Her voice was gentle, almost like she was soothing a baby. She led me by the hand, and I followed obediently. I didn't know why, but even before we left the darkness, having that warm hand guide me made me feel less afraid. If 12 years ago, inside that well, someone had held my hand like this, I knew I wouldn't have been afraid. Chloe led me out of the building and down the stairs, heading straight for the open field. I knew I wouldn't have been afraid. Chloe led me out of the building and down the stairs, heading straight for the open field. A bright full moon hung beautifully in the night sky, scattering silver light across the field. Though everything around us was still dark, the glowing moon made me feel much better. My body went limp as I lay on the grass, drenched in cold sweat. Chloe glanced at me and decided to stay close. She quietly sat beside me, hugging her legs. People with a fear of the dark can't stay somewhere cramped, dark, and poorly ventilated. Seeing something bright helps a lot. She smiled and pointed at the moon. Her sweet smile looked stunning in the moonlight, like an angel in white. She didn't feel like smiling, but I needed comfort. Trying to calm me, Chloe started another conversation. But Ethan, did you know the moon doesn't make its own light? It reflects sunlight. That topic is way too boring and technical. Chloe pressed her lips together and quietly looked away. Silence fell. After all, we'd fought that afternoon. How do you know so much about this? My dad is afraid of the dark too. He needs a nightlight when he sleeps. She spoke softly, her voice subdued. Maybe it was because we'd brought up her dad. Just hours ago, we'd been giving each other the silent treatment. I see. I rested my arms behind my head. I thought of how Chloe had soothed me like a child. Was she used to comforting her dad? Was she used to comforting her dad? Maybe because her dad and I had the same condition. I suddenly felt far less hostile toward him. We'd both suffered the same pain after all. Hey, Miss School Beauty. Still mad at me? Chloe sat there hugging her legs. She looked tiny, curled up like a little ball. She stayed silent. Say something. She glanced at me but still said nothing. Fine. Still mad. Huh? Then I got an idea. Soon, Chloe heard a low groan beside her. She turned and saw me curled up like a shrimp. My whole body was shaking. Ethan, what's wrong? Chloe went pale and rushed over. She grabbed my shoulders and tried to sit me up. Once I was upright, she saw me drenched in sweat. From earlier, actually. My lips quivered as I raised a trembling hand and grabbed Chloe's arm. I'm so scared. Scared? Chloe repeated the word anxiously. She panicked for a moment, then quickly looked up at the moon. With no other option, she quickly pulled me upright. I was a big guy, so she used every ounce of strength she had. Then she scooted back and settled my upper body in her lap. She reached out with both hands and quickly turned my head forward. Ethan, look at the moon. The moon was the last thing on my mind. She was soft and sweet-smelling behind me. Even if Diana Moon herself were up there, I still wouldn't care. Still trembling, I scooted back a little. A soft breeze drifted in from behind, carrying her sweet scent. I felt like I was floating. Feeling better? Still scared. You're still scared? Chloe looked around anxiously. She was about to borrow a flashlight when I suddenly grabbed her arm. Chloe, I'm here. She quickly turned back. I looked at her anxious face and whined, Are you still mad at me? No, I'm not mad at you. I was only mad for 1 second. Oh good. Under Chloe's stunned gaze, I picked my nose and calmly sat up. Relax. I'm fine. She stared at me, too stunned to react. To prove I really was fine, I grinned and did a goofy shoulder shimmy. I'm fine. See? Full of energy. Chloe's face turned icy again. Furious, she shoved my chest with both hands. Hey! My eyes widened. As I fell, I instinctively grabbed her arm. Chloe cried out as my weight pulled her forward. She landed on my chest in panic. Her beautiful eyes met mine from inches away. Our reflections filled each other's eyes. Just then, the floodlights at all 4 corners flashed on. The power was back. The red track and green field were fully exposed under the glaring lights. But to our shock, we weren't the only 2 on the field. Hundreds of couples froze in place. We weren't the only 2 on the field. Hundreds of couples froze in place. Some held hands or walked side by side. Others stood face to face. But few were in a pose as wild as ours. Nearby, 6 stern, middle-aged men walked slowly onto the track and shut off their flashlights in unison. They were the deans and assistant deans for all 3 grades. Victor shouted, Stay right there. Nobody move. State your name and homeroom, one at a time, like anyone would listen. The entire field erupted. Students scattered under the glaring lights. I quickly wrapped one arm around Chloe's slim waist and pushed myself up with the other. I gently set her down like a doll, then grabbed her arm and ran with the crowd. For a top student like Chloe, getting caught would be a disaster. A call home would be the least of it. We hadn't done anything wrong, but I knew if I tried to explain my fear of the dark to Victor, the old bastard would laugh in my face. They're running. Get them. Victor shrieked, but limped after us at a snail's pace, clutching his butt every few steps. Ow! My hemorrhoids. In the fleeing crowd, Chloe panted hard, unable to tear her eyes from my broad back. She couldn't stop replaying that moment. It had lasted only seconds, but left both her delicate ears burning red. They were still red now. I glanced back. Chloe looked up and met my eyes. I flashed her a bright smile, then turned and kept running. We finally escaped into Senior Homeroom 28's hallway. Then I turned and kept running. We finally escaped into Senior Homeroom 28's hallway. 3 or 4 couples got caught. That made my day. I couldn't help gloating now that we'd escaped. As we headed back to class, Chloe suddenly stopped and called out, "Ethan." "What?" "I'll go in first. Wait 3 minutes, then come in." "Good thinking. Go ahead." Chloe lowered her head and hurried past me. I went to the restroom before returning to class. Grace stood at the podium, looking furious and unsettled. She slammed the podium in rare anger. "What was all that? The power goes out and you all go feral?" The class stayed silent. Everyone looked guilty. Ms. Carter stood at the classroom door, glaring at everyone like a beast. Grace scanned the class for whoever had groped her. Then she spotted Dylan in the corner. The academic rep was staring solemnly at his homework. He looked so righteous it was suspicious. Grace looked away. Dylan looked like an upstanding kid. Couldn't be him. Ms. Carter took over and slammed the podium. "You're all real impressive. Tyler, bring your parents tomorrow." Tyler stood up in despair. Ryan was wide awake for once, biting his finger. His handsome face looked as intense as Sherlock Holmes, as he studied everyone within 15 feet. He'd just beaten Dylan up, but Dylan refused to confess. Someone else had kissed him. He turned to his desk mate, Zoe, whose face was redder than a baboon's butt. Someone else had kissed him. He turned to his desk mate, Zoe, whose face was redder than a baboon's butt. "What's wrong with you? A fever? Drink more water." "Thanks." Conversation over. Ryan resumed his investigation. He suspected Owen had kissed him. Ms. Carter scolded several more students. Chloe and I got away clean. We were both secretly thrilled, though for different reasons. Because of the blackout, evening study ended early. After packing up, Chloe followed me to the bike garage. I asked, "Nervous about the interview?" Chloe immediately nodded. "Why?" "Just picture my dad's head as a giant potato. Whatever he says, just smile, nod, and say, 'Aha.'" Chloe lowered her head, fighting a smile. I loved seeing her smile. She was gorgeous when she smiled. Too bad she always wore that icy face. I walked my bike outside. Chloe started walking, and I stared at her in surprise. "You have a ride, yet you're walking? Get on." I patted the back seat. She looked at the crowd outside the school. Chloe stood frozen. Her fingers nervously gripped her uniform pants. She stubbornly shook her head. Before I could ask, Chloe turned away shyly. Holding both backpack straps, she walked ahead with her head down. Then I understood. She was embarrassed. There were too many eyes at the school gate. If someone recognized Chloe and saw the icy school beauty riding on my bike, the whole school would know tomorrow. I remembered the girl who'd secretly pushed Chloe down the steps. I'd been too careless. Chloe was well known at school. If people bullied her, they'd spread rumors too. I slowed down as I walked my bike, leaving a wide gap behind Chloe. Noticing my thoughtfulness, she relaxed a little. We kept about 50 feet apart, walking one behind the other. Chloe glanced back from time to time to make sure I was still there. Each time, I tilted my head and smiled. After a few turns, there were no students from our school around. I mounted my bike and rode up beside her. "Get on. No one can see us now." Chloe obediently came around the bike and sat side saddle on the back seat. "If you don't hold on, you'll fall. You're definitely going to fall." At that, Chloe's long lashes lifted. She slowly reached out a pale hand, almost furtively, and pinched my uniform jacket between two fingers. Speechless, I started pedaling. Chloe instantly lost her balance and grunted. She quickly wrapped both arms tightly around my waist. Her pink nails went white from the pressure. "No one's watching. We're just riding a bike. What's wrong with holding my waist?" Of course, I knew nothing about her hidden feelings. Chloe kept her head down, ears red and arms around my waist. If anyone else were riding, she might not have cared so much. But the rider was Ethan. She never imagined. The boy she could only stare at during 10-minute breaks would one day be giving her a ride with no one around to see. Beyond her shyness, a rare, happy smile touched her lips. If only time could stop right here. She allowed herself that impossible wish. But Chloe knew happiness could belong to anyone, except her. Fate had marked her for misery since childhood. I hummed a Justin Timberlake song and leisurely pedaled toward my family's huge market. Chloe looked up curiously. "What song is that?" "It's a Justin Timberlake song." "I've never heard this one." I glanced back, then remembered it wouldn't come out until 2014. It was 2010. I smiled wryly, almost forgetting I'd been reborn. My first goal in this new life was getting into a good college, to make up for never attending one before. In every rebirth novel, the hero rushed straight into business. It was always the same. They got a second life and spent it all making money. What was the real point of being reborn? Getting your youth back came first. Money came second. I was reborn to enjoy being young. Sure, I'd make money too, but after graduation. Getting into the same college as Chloe would be amazing. But that was probably a fantasy. She was bound for Harvard or Yale. I suddenly hit the brakes. Chloe jumped, and bumped into my back. I stared solemnly at the red light ahead and made a bold declaration. Chloe. Yeah. I refuse to stay dead last. I'll study hard and get into a great college. People by the crosswalk turned to stare. Behind me, Chloe lowered her head, ears bright red. I'll do my best to tutor you. The light's green. Go. For once, my public outburst made her want to hit me. After winding through the streets, we finally reached Harvest Fresh Market. It was one of the largest grocery stores around Maple Avenue. Chloe got off and I parked the bike outside. I told her to wait there, while I went in to give Dad a heads up. She stood there and obediently nodded, but her fingers tugging at her sleeve betrayed her nerves. This wasn't just meeting the boss. She was meeting Ethan's father. She knew that shouldn't mean anything to her, but she was still a nervous wreck. I entered the market and saw Frank holding a notebook, checking products on the shelves, and writing something down. Dad! I yelled so loudly that Frank jumped. When he turned, his Will Ferrell-like face nearly made me laugh. I brought her. Just give her the basics. Don't ask too much. She's here? Let's see which poor kid's grades are about to suffer. The two of us stepped outside. Chloe immediately turned toward us. Her long lashes trembled. As she greeted him nervously, we stepped outside. Chloe immediately turned toward us. Her long lashes trembled. As she greeted him nervously, Frank's smile froze. He forced out one word. Hi. Then he grabbed my arm and dragged me back inside. You little punk. Where the hell did you kidnap a girl this pretty? I thought it was a boy. Aren't you afraid her dad will kill you? She's my desk mate. Frank immediately flicked me on the forehead. One look and you can tell she's from a good family. How could she need money? Did you trick her into something? He started taking off his shoe to hit me. My muscle memory kicked in and I twisted away. I didn't trick her. She volunteered. Frank charged at me furiously. Still no. Send her home. Don't get my store shut down, you punk. He kicked me in the butt and sent me flying outside. I stumbled out in a ridiculous pose. I scratched my head awkwardly. Ethan, I'm going home. She lowered her head and forced a smile. Then she turned and walked into the darkness. Her reaction caught me off guard. I rushed over and grabbed her arm. Wait. Forced to turn. She hid her red eyes behind her hair. She still forced an awkward smile. It's getting late. My dad will worry if I'm not home. She must have heard us arguing, but not the details. She only knew father and son were fighting. Chloe was always sensitive and insecure. She'd come here nervous but hopeful. She only knew father and son were fighting. Chloe was always sensitive and insecure. She'd come here nervous but hopeful. But the moment she heard us arguing, she blamed herself for it. I glanced at the market without letting go of her arm. I said seriously, wait a little longer. Just a minute. Leave and you'll be sorry. Don't fight. Fight? I don't solve problems with words. I went back and kicked the door open. Frank turned from the register. Are you trying to kill me? I raised 4 fingers and looked at Dad seriously. Let her work here, and I'll rank in the top 40 on the next monthly exam. Frank's anger faded. He narrowed his eyes and studied me with interest. Then he slammed his notebook down. Top 30. My eyebrows shot up. No. Top 39, max. Top 30. Top 36. Top 30. Top 35. Frank excitedly pointed at me. Deal. You tricked me, you old bastard. Frank glared and reached for his shoe. I made a tactical retreat. Fine. Top 35. Miss it and that girl is gone. I mean it. There were 53 students in class. I had to reach the top 35. That meant climbing at least 500 spots in the grade. And I had barely over a month. As I went to bring Chloe inside, Frank called from behind. You like her? I turned in surprise. You think a girl like that would want you? Even after all this, she'll never give you a second glance. Give it up. I scoffed and ignored him. My feelings for Chloe were completely pure. I was practically raising her like a daughter. Did he think I was some simp? I stepped outside. Chloe had obediently stayed. But instead of standing under the entrance lights, she was now in a dark corner. Her slender figure looked utterly alone. Felt like one gust of wind could sweep her into the darkness forever. The sight hurt, but I still teased her. Why are you hiding there? Trying to scare me? Chloe quickly stepped out. I was about to speak when I noticed the tear stains by her eyes. No, there were customers just now, so I moved aside. I took her arm and led her inside. I brought her to Frank. Come with me, kid. I'll show you around. Frank spoke, glancing at Chloe's pink backpack. He seemed to realize something, but said nothing. Chloe obediently followed him. She pulled out a notebook and pen, and listened intently. Frank gave her an amused look. You don't need notes. It's nothing complicated. Besides, you'll only be here briefly at night, right? Yes. They walked ahead while I followed. I watched Chloe's back like a proud father, and smiled faintly. Frank explained her duties as they walked. There wasn't much and it was easy, but Chloe still wrote everything down. Just straighten the shelves, ring up customers, and clean when it's quiet at night. Make sure the meat coolers stay on. Then he looked at some trash nearby and glanced at me. Clean that up later. Why didn't you do it yourself? Were you waiting for me? I'm the boss. After the tour, the three of us returned to the register. Frank put on his coat. Teach your classmate how to run the register. I'm heading home. After Frank left, I told Chloe, look around and get familiar with the place. I'll write down some instructions. A few minutes later, I finished. I looked up and saw Frank had returned. Damn it, I forgot my bag. I ignored him, but moments later, I found him frozen, staring down an aisle. I feared something had happened to Chloe. I hurried over. I reached Frank's side. We both froze. Between two shelves, Chloe was kneeling on the floor, using a rag she'd found somewhere to carefully scrub the floor. Her quiet back looked solemn, focused and meticulous. She silently did what she believed was her duty. Frank was visibly moved by the sight. He turned to me and whispered, "Who exactly is she?" I took a deep breath, my feelings mixed. She's a good kid. Frank glanced at me and said quietly, "If you missed the top 35, she's still gone. No exceptions." Then he took his bag and left. "You heartless old man. I'll make the top 35 just to prove you wrong." Even without Chloe, I had to start pushing myself for the college entrance exam. I only had 1 year to use a brain that had rusted for 15 years and fill a 2-year gap in my education. Time was short and the task was huge. But unlike my last life, I didn't resist the idea of studying hard this time. I knew exactly what I wanted from this life. I walked toward the girl scrubbing the floor. "Hey." Chloe looked back. She slowly stood, holding the dirty rag and looking confused. From her calm expression, kneeling to clean hadn't bothered her at all. I walked up and raised my hand, poking her smooth, pale forehead. "Are you stupid? There's a mop, yet you're kneeling here with a rag? There's a mop, yet you're kneeling here with a rag?" Chloe closed her eyes and pulled her head back. She looked up at me, slightly aggrieved. "I only found the rag." I bent down and brushed the dust from her knees. "You still didn't have to clean it." Chloe shyly stepped back. "Your dad said to clean when it's quiet. Now you're talking back to me?" I pointed at her sternly. Chloe thought I'd poke her forehead again. She instinctively shrank back and shut her eyes. But I didn't. "Throw that rag away. It's filthy." "Where?" She instinctively shrank back and shut her eyes. But I didn't. "Throw that rag away. It's filthy." "Where?" "On my face." Chloe lowered her head, cheeks red with embarrassment. She finally dropped the rag gently onto the floor. "Come with me." Passing a small door, I pointed. "That's the supply closet. Go wash your hands. Then meet me at the register." After washing up, Chloe came to the register. She saw me taking bills from the drawer. 5 in total. "Here, hold out your hand." Chloe stared without moving, so I explained, "The market pays everyone in advance at the start of each month. All employees get paid this way." Chloe looked like she saw right through me. Her beautiful eyes stared into mine. I knocked on the counter and snapped, "What's with that look? Is it not enough?" Chloe lowered her head and said, "I don't want an advance. Pay me with everyone else." I slapped the counter and pointed at her. "Defying the boss? I could fire you right now." Chloe looked up. Her calm, beautiful eyes quietly watched me. Her face practically said, "That's all you've got?" I calmly added, "Guess you want my dad to hear what you did that day." Chloe instantly panicked. She immediately took the $500 and held it tightly to her chest. I smiled. "You work fewer hours, so you'll make at least $500 a month. Do well and you might get a raise." She held it tightly to her chest. I smiled. "You work fewer hours, so you'll make at least $500 a month. Do well and you might get a raise." I leaned closer. "Of course, if you find some way to please the boss, a raise could be arranged." Both Chloe's ears instantly turned bright red. She raised her other hand and clutched the money to her chest. She looked nervous and embarrassed. "What are you imagining?" I sat on the counter and rubbed her head. "I meant you should smile more. That's one way to please the boss. And tutor me." Chloe immediately looked up and said earnestly, "I promise I'll tutor you. Obviously, that's already your job. Remember my house this Saturday. So what will you do with your first paycheck?" I pointed at the money against her chest. Chloe realized and quickly offered me $100 with both hands. "I'm paying you back." I took it. "Okay." After putting it away, I noticed her red cheeks and hesitant look. "What?" Chloe whispered so softly I could barely hear. "You owe me $13.50 in change." I froze, then burst out laughing. "Oh right, I almost forgot." I gave her the change and she accepted it with both hands. "Aren't you going to count it?" Chloe quickly shook her head, her pale face red as a tomato. "What about the rest?" For a high school student in 2010, $400 was a fortune. What will you do with the rest? For a high school student in 2010, $400 was a fortune. Chloe answered seriously, 100 for my meal card and 100 for practice tests. She stopped there, apparently unsure about the rest. I reminded her, 50 for the class uniform. Chloe looked up, paused, then shook her head. I'm not buying one. I leaned on the counter and looked at the ceiling. True, it's only for the sports day parade. But Chloe, we're only young once. Years from now, I may regret not studying harder. You may regret not wearing that pretty skirt. At your last high school sports day, I lowered my gaze to the beautiful girl and met her eyes with a smile. Chloe looked away and thought quietly. Her fingers tightened, but she couldn't bear to crease the bills. Watching her struggle, I wasn't frustrated. My heart ached. It was only $50, yet she weighed it like life or death. How about this? Buy it now and after sports day, sell it to me for 80% of the price. Chloe looked at me in confusion. I warned her seriously, don't wash it. I want the original scent. When I got home, Mom and Dad were sitting in the living room, giving me strange looks. Clearly, Frank had told his wife everything. Kid, if you don't make the top 35, I really will keep my word. But Natalie was curious about something else. Frank, is that girl really as pretty as you said? Frank frowned. Why would I lie? She looks like an angel. Let me attend his next parent-teacher conference. I want to see her. Natalie grew excited. Frank turned to me curiously. What does her family do? She doesn't look like an ordinary kid. Why does she need money? I shrugged. I didn't know either. Judging by Chloe's looks and poise, no one would guess. She couldn't even afford a $1 loaf of bread. I was genuinely curious about her family. But it was private. Pushing too hard would only backfire. As I drank some water, Lily's door cracked open. The little girl waved me over. Ethan. Lily pulled me over to sit by her bed. With a suspiciously sweet look, she hugged my arm and rested her head on my shoulder. Can you attend my parent-teacher conference at Eastbrook tomorrow? I pinched her cheeks and lifted her face. What's really going on? Lily said pitifully, I lied to Mom and Dad. I didn't make the top 20 last semester. Mom's going to spank me raw. Fine, but this is the last time. Yes, you're the best. The next day at morning break, I saw Chloe holding $100 and walking toward Logan. After giving him her size, she came back with $50. Madison looked back in surprise. Chloe was joining the sports day parade this time? Would they replace the girl carrying the class sign too? Chloe returned to her seat. Chloe suddenly whispered while I was reading, I'm not selling it. Her ears turned red as she looked away and hid her delicate profile behind her book. I chuckled and kept reading. During second period that afternoon, Chloe noticed I hadn't shown up. I clearly skipped class. I traded my uniform for a hoodie and strolled toward Eastbrook Middle with my hands in my pockets. It had been years. I couldn't help thinking of Mr. Overalls. After crossing the street, sure enough, I saw that familiar figure by the landscaping. He still sat perfectly straight just like before. I bought 2 lollipops and walked over. I sat beside him and casually held one out. Lollipop. Mr. Overalls happily took it. Thank you. When he turned, he froze for a moment. Then he smiled in delight. Little Monk. Little Monk. I grinned. It was the same old nickname. I'd had a buzz cut since middle school, so he'd always called me Little Monk. After over 2 years, he still recognized me. Then an old voice came from behind. He's waiting for his daughter to get out of school. He keeps forgetting she's in high school now. I turned and saw an elderly sanitation worker. Sir, you know him? Walter sat down beside us. Of course. His family has been through hell. He may seem childlike now, but back in the 90s, he was a successful businessman. I looked at the handsome man in surprise. He was a successful businessman. I looked at the handsome man in surprise. Walter continued. Then someone set him up. His company went under and he sold his house and car. He had a son and a daughter. The family was poor, but they got by. Then his wife was diagnosed with leukemia. They couldn't afford treatment. She lasted a year. I fell silent. After she died, he kept raising their 2 children. A few years later, fate struck again. His son was hit by a car days before his entrance exam. The boy thought he was fine. He took $500 from the driver and limped home. He died that very night. $500 for a life. I could barely breathe. After so many blows, his mind finally broke. Walter sighed. His whole life has been nothing but pain. Doesn't he still have a daughter? Walter shook his head with a bitter smile. She's the most tragic one. She was only 3 when the family went bankrupt. She's never known a good life. Then her brother died, and her father lost his mind. She was just a little girl, going to school while caring for her dad. And she took such good care of him. What a remarkable kid. The weakest rope always snaps, and misery finds those who've suffered most. Walter stood and left. I sat quietly and looked at Daniel again. I went back to the store and bought a large bag of bread. I placed it in his arms. As I stood, I saw Lily outside the school gate. I came back with a large bag of bread and placed it in his arms. As I stood, I saw Lily outside the school gate. She was waving at me. By evening study, I'd finished the conference and returned to Ridgeway High. At the classroom door, I saw Chloe coming out of the office. Why were you in the office? Where were you this afternoon? We stopped and spoke at almost the exact same time. Our sudden synchronicity made Chloe lower her head shyly. I smiled. My sister's parent-teacher conference. What about you? Chloe gently shook her head. Nothing. Everyone else did homework during evening study. I just studied the material in my textbooks. All the teachers had given up on me anyway. After finishing my Algebra I textbook, I closed it and looked at the struggling students in the back. There were 53 students. I had to beat 18 of them to reach the top 35. But the top 35 was far from my real goal. I had total confidence in English. Even Chloe might not beat me. The other subjects were less certain, especially math and physics. My eyes settled on Ryan, who was sound asleep. He consistently ranked 10th from the bottom. But in my last life, he scored over 600 on the entrance exam. He was a true legend. Grace Monroe was the one who changed him. I later heard they married and had a child. The three of them lived happily. But his turning point wouldn't come until next semester. For one woman in a single semester, he went from the bottom 10 to scoring over 600. To me, Ryan the Sleeping God was a real man. I left the classroom to use the restroom. When I returned, Chloe was gone. He went from the bottom 10 to scoring over 600. To me, Ryan the Sleeping God was a real man. I left the classroom to use the restroom. When I returned, Chloe and her backpack were gone. Where did Chloe go? No idea. She grabbed her backpack and left. I looked up at Miss Carter and found her watching me from the podium. She made a V with two bent fingers and pointed at her eyes, then pointed at me. That woman was creepy. After evening study, I biked to the market. Frank sat by the register, trimming his nose hair in a makeup mirror as he looked up. Hey, don't you two get out at the same time? She's here? She got here ages ago. She's working now. That girl's diligent. She's 1,000 times better than you. I turned and saw Chloe in a little red vest, carrying a broom and trash can. Strands of hair clung to her pale face. The red vest was the market uniform. I'd always thought it was ugly as hell, but on Chloe, it somehow looked ugly cute. No, she was cute. The uniform was still ugly. When Chloe saw me, she paused. She awkwardly looked away and turned to Frank. Mr. Hayes, should I throw out the empty bottles too? Frank nodded. Yeah. Toss them in the dumpster outside. Chloe looked conflicted. But you can recycle them for money. How much could they be worth? Just toss them. I slapped the counter in front of Dad. Waste is shameful. Every little bit adds up. Find a large sack and save the bottles. I directed that last order at Chloe. She nodded happily and got right to it. Frank stood there stunned after being lectured by his son. I lowered my voice. Come on. She only makes 500 a month. This place is huge, and you're making her clean it alone? She volunteered. That's not my fault. That did sound like something this stubborn girl would do. I set my backpack on the counter and walked toward the busy Chloe. I grabbed her arm and pulled her into a corner. You went to the office to ask Miss Carter to leave evening study early, then snuck off while I was gone? Chloe had no answer and lowered her head. Her hands nervously gripped an empty bottle. I took the bottle and slapped the wall behind her. Cat got your tongue? You think working extra hours will get you a raise? Not happening. Chloe looked up, her beautiful eyes sincere. I don't want a raise. Evening study ends at 9, and I'm done after 10. That's only an hour a day, but I make 500 a month. She lowered her head and said stubbornly, 500 is too much. 500 is too much? My brain crashed. Do you know what everyone else makes? Chloe shook her head. I don't care what they make. You're definitely overpaying me, so I have to work more. The work should match the pay. You, why are you so stubborn? I raised both hands beside her small, pale face, gritting my teeth in frustration. Chloe eyed my grabby hands. She nervously stepped back and threatened. If you bully me, I'll tell your dad. Forget it. I couldn't win with her. I really couldn't. I took a deep breath. Just don't let this hurt your studies. Got it? Seeing me give in, Chloe flashed a beautiful smile and nodded brightly. I watched her walk away. Helpless or not, I still smiled. 1 year later, when the scores came out, I ranked 7th in school. Chloe ranked 3rd in the state. That night, after checking our scores, I biked her home. As we passed the market, Chloe suddenly tightened her arms around my waist and pressed her face against my back. Ethan. Yeah. Everything I owe you. I don't think I can repay it in this lifetime. I stopped and looked back. Her ears were red in the moonlight. But this time, she didn't avoid my gaze. Ethan, we'll still see each other in college, right? I froze for 3 seconds, then grinned like an idiot. A gentle night breeze swept down Maple Avenue. One blue, one pink. 2 backpacks hung from the handlebars, swaying softly as if for their owners. They'd fulfilled a promise.